In just minutes, the balance of power in Asia shifted. The U.S. Navy launched a strike so fast and so precise that 3 Chinese missile bases were wiped out in only 14 minutes. How did they pull this off? Let's break down the unbelievable story. In today's world, conflicts no longer need weeks or months to unfold. A single operation, executed with speed and precision, can transform the balance of power in moments. That's what happened when the United States Navy carried out a lightning strike that eliminated 3 Chinese missile bases in just 14 minutes. The event shocked the international community. How could one of the most powerful nations lose such critical assets in the blink of an eye? The answer lies in America's unrivaled naval power, advanced missile technology, and flawless coordination. This strike wasn't simply about destruction. It was about sending a clear message to rivals across the globe. America still holds the fastest, most precise, and most lethal military force on Earth. China's bases, designed to project power in the South China Sea, were neutralized almost instantly. Satellites and surveillance drones recorded the moment, fueling debates worldwide. Some called it a warning shot, others saw it as the beginning of a dangerous escalation. What everyone agreed on was that military history had been rewritten in real time. This operation wasn't just about defeating an enemy, it was a live demonstration of what 21st century warfare looks like. And it left the entire world asking, if the U.S. Navy can pull this off in 14 minutes, what else is it capable of? The U.S. and China have been locked in a struggle for dominance for decades. Economically, diplomatically, and militarily, both nations constantly test each other's limits. Nowhere is this rivalry more intense than in the South China Sea, a body of water rich in resources and vital for global trade. China has built artificial islands and missile bases there, aiming to expand its influence and challenge U.S. presence in Asia. For the U.S., this isn't just about territory, it's about protecting allies like Japan, South Korea, and the Philippines, and ensuring freedom of navigation in one of the world's busiest trade routes. Chinese missile bases were a direct threat to U.S. aircraft carriers and regional stability. They symbolized Beijing's determination to push America out of its backyard. Washington saw these missile bases as unacceptable. Each one was equipped with advanced surface-to-surface and surface-to-air systems, capable of striking ships and deterring U.S. forces. For years, analysts warned that China was shifting the regional balance. And yet, in one bold move, the U.S. Navy erased that threat in less time than it takes to play a soccer match. The rivalry wasn't just military. It was psychological. The U.S. wanted to remind the world that despite China's rise, America's technological edge and ability to act decisively were unmatched. This operation wasn't only a counterstrike, it was a message carved in firepower. The Pacific still belongs to the eagle, not the dragon. The 3 Chinese missile bases destroyed in the strike weren't just ordinary facilities. They were critical nodes in China's anti-access and area denial (A2AD) strategy. Built with hardened bunkers, missile silos, radar arrays, and underground command centers, these bases were designed to keep American forces out of the South China Sea. Each base was positioned to cover hundreds of miles of ocean, overlapping in range to create a deadly shield. If U.S. carriers or destroyers entered the zone, they risked being targeted by long-range anti-ship ballistic missiles. These bases were meant to tilt the balance in China's favor, giving Beijing leverage over disputes with neighbors and making it risky for Washington to intervene. But in warfare, no fortress is invincible. The U.S. identified weaknesses: reliance on satellite communications, exposed radar stations, and a vulnerability to electronic warfare. By striking these bases simultaneously, America not only removed the immediate threat but dismantled a major piece of China's long-term military strategy. The destruction of these facilities didn't just cripple China's regional defenses. It shattered the illusion that Beijing's island fortresses could withstand a U.S. offensive. Billions of dollars and years of construction vanished in 14 minutes. For Chinese military planners, it was a nightmare come true. For the U.S. and its allies, it was proof that America's strike capabilities could neutralize even the most fortified defenses. Such an operation doesn't happen overnight. Months of planning, intelligence gathering, and war gaming went into this strike. The Pentagon, working closely with Indo-Pacific Command, had been monitoring Chinese activities in the region for years. Satellite imagery, intercepted communications, and surveillance drones all played a role in mapping out every inch of the targeted bases. Planners identified the exact locations of missile launchers, radar arrays, and command centers. They studied the bases, defenses, from surface-to-air missile coverage to anti-ship patrols. The strike had to be surgical, fast enough to prevent a counterattack, precise enough to avoid civilian casualties, and devastating enough to eliminate the threat entirely. Cyber operations were launched in parallel. Before the first missile flew, Chinese communication networks were jammed, and radar systems blinded. Electronic warfare planes created confusion in enemy sensors, while satellites fed real-time intelligence to American commanders. The operation was designed to overwhelm China's defenses before they even realized what was happening. This wasn't just brute force, it was chess played at supersonic speed. By the time Chinese commanders understood they were under attack, the operation was already halfway done. The planning showed not just America's technological superiority but its ability to synchronize land, sea, air, space, and cyber domains into one seamless strike. At the heart of the strike was America's unmatched arsenal of precision-guided weapons. Tomahawk cruise missiles, launched from U.S. Navy destroyers and submarines, spearheaded the assault. Flying low to the water and guided by GPS and terrain mapping, these missiles evaded Chinese radar until it was too late. Supporting them were advanced hypersonic glide vehicles, capable of traveling at speeds greater than Mach 5. These weapons gave the strike an edge that China simply couldn't counter. By the time detection systems registered their approach, impact was already imminent. Unmanned aerial vehicles also played a critical role. Drones provided live surveillance, identified targets, and even carried out electronic attacks to blind enemy systems. Meanwhile, stealth bombers flying high above remained undetected, ready to deliver bunker-busting munitions against hardened shelters. What made the strike devastating wasn't just the firepower, it was the coordination. Every missile, every drone, every aircraft worked in perfect synchronization. Targets were hit within seconds of each other, overwhelming Chinese defenses and preventing any chance of retaliation. This operation proved that technology, when paired with strategy, creates dominance. China's bases weren't destroyed by sheer numbers but by weapons designed to be faster, smarter, and deadlier than anything they had faced before. The U.S. Navy showed that in modern warfare, precision beats power, and speed decides survival. The strike began in the dead of night. U.S. Navy submarines lurking silently beneath the waves opened fire first, unleashing a barrage of Tomahawk missiles. Seconds later, destroyers and cruisers joined in, filling the sky with precision-guided weapons. Chinese radar operators scrambled to respond, but their screens lit up with confusion. Electronic warfare units jammed frequencies, while drones fed false signals, creating the illusion of phantom attacks. By the time they realized which missiles were real, explosions had already rocked the first base. Within minutes, command bunkers were destroyed, missile silos reduced to rubble, and radar stations obliterated. At the second base, hypersonic weapons tore through hardened shelters, leaving nothing but smoldering wreckage. At the third, stealth bombers dropped bunker-busting ordnance that penetrated underground facilities with surgical precision. The entire operation unfolded with breathtaking speed. Chinese defenses barely fired back before being neutralized. In just 14 minutes, 3 heavily fortified bases were reduced to ruins. From the decks of American ships, sailors watched as years of Chinese construction disappeared in fireballs. For them, it was a moment of pride. For Beijing, it was a moment of shock. The operation was over almost as quickly as it began, leaving the world stunned by America's ability to wage war at the speed of thought. For Beijing, the strike was a humiliating setback. 3 bases that symbolized China's military rise were gone in less than a quarter of an hour. State media initially tried to downplay the damage, but satellite images told a different story, smoldering ruins where once stood formidable fortresses. Chinese military officials scrambled to assess the losses. Billions of dollars in infrastructure, advanced missile systems, and years of construction had been wiped out. More concerning was the realization that their defenses had been penetrated with ease. The belief that their A2AD strategy could keep the U.S. at bay was shattered. Politically, the government faced pressure to respond. Nationalist voices demanded retaliation, while moderates urged caution, knowing that escalation could spiral into full-scale war. Diplomats rushed to reassure allies and prevent the crisis from expanding. China vowed to rebuild stronger, faster, and with more advanced technology. But rebuilding takes years. Trust, however, was lost overnight. The strike exposed vulnerabilities that would haunt Chinese military planners for decades. Internationally, the strike damaged China's image as a rising power. Instead of intimidating neighbors, it highlighted their dependence on American protection. For the Communist Party, the greatest wound wasn't the bases destroyed, it was the aura of invincibility shattered. The world watched in shock as news of the strike spread. U.S. allies in Asia breathed a sigh of relief. Nations like Japan, South Korea, and the Philippines, long wary of China's growing military power, now saw proof that America's defense commitments were more than words. The message was clear. Washington could and would act decisively. In Europe, NATO allies praised the strike as a reminder that American power still underpinned global stability. But there was also unease. If conflicts could escalate this quickly, what would it mean for future wars? Could a miscalculation trigger global catastrophe in minutes? Russia, meanwhile, condemned the strike, calling it reckless aggression, but behind closed doors, analysts in Moscow studied every detail, knowing they might face the same weapons one day. Other rivals took note too. North Korea, Iran, and others realized that U.S. military reach was as formidable as ever. For neutral countries, the strike was both terrifying and enlightening. It showed the dangers of relying on force but also underscored the importance of aligning with a power capable of protection. In the halls of the United Nations, debates raged about legality and proportionality. But outside, the reality was clear. The U.S. Navy had redefined modern conflict, and the world was left to adapt to a new reality where wars could be fought, and won, in less than 15 minutes. The strike wasn't just about the U.S. and China, it was a glimpse into the future of warfare. Gone are the days of long campaigns and drawn-out battles. The wars of tomorrow will be decided in minutes by speed, precision, and technology. The operation proved that cyber warfare, electronic disruption, and hypersonic weapons are just as decisive as tanks or troops. Modern conflicts will be fought across multiple domains simultaneously: land, sea, air, space, and cyberspace. Whoever can integrate these elements faster will dominate the battlefield. For militaries worldwide, the lesson was clear: invest in speed and survivability. Hardened bases, once seen as secure, may now be liabilities. Mobility, deception, and resilience will matter more than sheer firepower. The strike also raised critical ethical and political questions. If wars can start and end in under 20 minutes, how will leaders ensure decisions are deliberate and not made in panic? What safeguards can prevent miscalculation from spiraling into nuclear conflict? For the U.S., the operation reinforced its role as the ultimate military innovator. For China, it was a harsh reminder that catching up technologically is only part of the challenge. Matching America's ability to execute is another story altogether. The destruction of 3 Chinese missile bases in just 14 minutes was more than a military operation, it was a turning point in modern history. It showed that power today isn't measured by how many troops you have, but by how quickly and precisely you can strike. For the United States, it was a statement of dominance. For China, it was a lesson in vulnerability. For the world, it was proof that the next global conflict, if it ever comes, may not last years or months, but mere minutes. The operation highlighted both the strength and the danger of modern technology. It reassured allies but terrified adversaries. It kept America's deterrence strong, but it also pushed the world closer to the edge of high-speed conflict. As history looks back, this strike will be remembered as the moment the rules of war changed. The eagle struck, the dragon reeled, and the world watched in awe and fear. The question now is not whether America can do it again, but whether the world is ready for wars fought at the speed of lightning.